Today, we are diving deep, and I mean deep, into the heart of one of the most incredible civilizations in all of human history. We're talking about Ma'a, the ancient Egyptian idea of truth, justice, and cosmic order. This wasn't just a philosophy. It was a force so powerful that it held an entire society together for 3,000 years. So let's just start with that massive question. What in the world holds a civilization together for 3 millennia? I mean, think about that. It's not just about having a big army or a booming economy. For the ancient Egyptians, the answer was an idea. It was a kind of cosmic operating system that guided literally everything, from how the pharaoh ruled the country to the daily actions of the smallest farmer. All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get a handle on Ma'at as Egypt's cosmic operating system. Then, things get dramatic as we witness the soul's final exam. We'll dig into the 42 declarations that were at the very heart of this trial, see how they became the blueprint for a whole civilization, and finally, we'll look at how these ancient ideas still echo in Egypt today. Okay, so what is Ma'at? Well, you've probably seen her depicted as a goddess with a single ostrich feather on her head. But really, that's just the face of a much, much bigger idea. Ma'at is the fundamental principle that keeps the universe from falling apart. It's why the sun rises, why the Nile floods each year, and why society, works. It's truth, balance, and cosmic order all rolled into one powerful concept. And you can't really get Ma'at without understanding its absolute opposite, Isfet. Isfet is chaos. It's lies, injustice, and pure destruction. And for the Egyptians, this wasn't just some abstract idea. This was a constant cosmic battle. The main job of the pharaoh, and honestly of every single person, was to actively uphold Ma'at and fight back against the forces of Isfet every single day. And this is where things get really personal and, frankly, incredibly dramatic. We're talking about what happened to your soul after you died. This wasn't just philosophy. This was the basis for your eternal destiny. It was your final exam, all laid out in chapter 125 of the Book of the Dead. So the journey was this formal 4-step trial. Imagine this. First, your soul enters the huge, awe-inspiring Hall of Double Truth. There, you have to stand before 42 divine judges. To prove you're worthy, you have to recite 42 declarations of innocence, basically denying you've committed a list of specific sins. And all of this leads up to the final iconic moment, the weighing of the heart. And this right here, this image, it captures the most powerful idea of the entire process. See, the Egyptians believed your heart, what they called the Ib, was the seat of your conscience, your memory, the record of every single thing you ever did. And in this ceremony, your entire life gets placed on one side of a scale, and on the other, a single, pure feather of truth. The stakes? Well, they couldn't possibly be higher. If your heart was heavy, weighed down by all your lies, sins, and wrongdoings, the scale would tip. Then the terrifying monster Amet, who was part crocodile, part lion, and part hippo, would devour it, and your soul would be completely obliterated. But if your heart was light, if it balanced perfectly with that feather, you were declared Ma'a Keru, which means true of voice, and you won eternal life in a paradise they called the Field of Reeds. So, how did you make sure your heart was light enough for that final test? You did it by living your life according to these 42 declarations of innocence. Now, it's really important to get this. These weren't laws like we think of them, like a criminal code. They were negative confessions. You had to stand before the gods and declare, I have not done these things. So let's dive in and see what this moral universe actually looked like. Okay, the first group of laws is all about moral purity. Basically, the most direct ways you can harm someone. You've got the big ones, no sin, no robbery, no theft. But listen to how deep it goes. It's not just I have not killed, but also I have not ordered anyone to kill. It's about accountability. And it's not just about physical pain, but the emotional harm, and I have not made anyone weep. This code holds you responsible for the suffering you cause, period. And that idea of moral purity keeps going, moving from just physical harm to social and economic harm. You had to declare you weren't a man of violence, and you didn't terrorize anyone. But then it shifts to things that hold society together. No adultery. And this one is incredible. I have not caused hunger. Wow, that's a powerful stand against hoarding resources. And finally, it looks at your character. I have not acted with insolence. It's a complete view of what it means to be a good person. Next up, we have the rules that keep society itself from falling apart, social order and honesty. I mean, think about it. You can destroy a community with words just as easily as with swords, right? And that's exactly what these address. You have to say, you haven't lied, you haven't slandered, you haven't borne false witness. But it gets into the nitty-gritty of daily life. No eavesdropping, no angry outbursts, and this one feels pretty modern, no being a gossip or stirring up trouble. And the focus on your personal character just gets deeper here. You were judged on whether you were rash in judgment or if you meddled in other people's business. But honestly, maybe the most profound of all of these is, I have not closed my ears to the words of truth. Just think about that. It's not just about not telling lies yourself. It's about being willing to listen to the truth. That's a call for some serious intellectual humility. The third category is all about piety, basically crimes against the divine order. This covers the obvious stuff, don't disrespect the gods, but it's also really practical. Stealing from temple offerings wasn't just a sin, it was a crime that disrupted the whole sacred economy that supported the temples and the priests. This also covers respecting the dead and protecting the king, who is seen as the god's representative on earth. And finally, we get to a category that is frankly just mind-blowing for its time: cosmic order. Thousands of years before we were talking about environmentalism, the Egyptians had it in their moral code. I have not polluted the water. Just think about what that meant for the Nile. I have not stopped the flow of water. That's a command for fair resource management that countries are still fighting over today. This proves that for the Egyptians, justice wasn't just for people, it was for the entire universe. So you see, these 42 declarations were so much more than just a cheat sheet for the afterlife. They were the actual blueprint for Egyptian civilization. This shared moral code was like the software that ran their entire society for thousands of years. So how did this one big idea lead to a 3,000-year-long civilization? Well, it stood on 4 pillars. First, the pharaoh's right to rule was totally based on his ability to uphold Ma'at. Second, because everyone shared the same moral code, you had this social cohesion to pull off incredible projects, like, the pyramids. Third, Ma'at was the philosophy behind their entire legal system. And finally, it gave every single Egyptian a deep sense of cosmic stability, a belief that the universe was fair and that a good life would be rewarded. And this wasn't just some abstract concept, it was literally woven into their government. The vizier, who was basically the prime minister and chief justice all in one, wore a symbol of the goddess Ma'at around his neck every single day. It was a constant, visible reminder that every decision he made had to be weighed against the ultimate standard of truth and cosmic order. Now, it's easy to hear all this and think, okay, cool, ancient history. But what is so remarkable is how these thousands of years old principles speak directly to the challenges we face in the modern world, especially in Egypt today. Let's just think about modern justice and government for a second. The declaration, "I have not spoken lies," what is that if not a direct call for transparency and a weapon against corruption? "I have not stolen" is the absolute bedrock of the rule of law. And "I have not cheated the poor" is a timeless blueprint for social justice, for protecting the vulnerable and ensuring a fair society. And in our society today, these principles are just as vital. "I have not stirred up strife" that's a powerful foundation for national unity, for encouraging respectful debate instead of division. The rules against arrogance push for the humility we need to build strong communities. And that idea of not closing their ears to the truth, that's essential for any kind of progress or understanding. But maybe the most urgent echo of Ma'at today is in how we treat our planet. That ancient declaration, "I have not polluted the water," is nothing short of a sacred mandate to protect the Nile, Egypt's very lifeblood, from modern pollution. And "I have not stopped the flow of water" is a foundational principle for managing a precious resource fairly and sustainably, especially in a changing climate. So in the end, Ma'at was way more than just a list of do's and don'ts from the gods. It was a profound vision for a just, balanced, and harmonious world. And its real power came from the fact that it placed the responsibility for creating that world squarely on the shoulders of every single person, your heart, your actions, your responsibility. And that leaves us with one last, very personal question. A question that has been echoing for over 3,000 years, from the Hall of Double Truth all the way to our world right now. If your heart were placed on those scales, against that one single feather of truth, what would they say about the life you've lived?